It was the 3rd year of our marriage, and Thomas had forgotten my birthday. My fingers trembled slightly as I dialed his number. "Are you coming home tonight?" I asked, hoping for even a hint of warmth in his voice. "No, I'm celebrating with my best friend," he replied casually. I lowered my gaze to the very same friend lying beside me. A familiar pang of guilt tightened in my chest. "He says he's celebrating with you," I whispered. Eric shifted, leaning in just enough for his lips to brush mine in a quick, teasing touch. "Then let's toast to love, shall we?" he murmured, voice low and smooth. My hand froze. Anxiety jolted through me as guilt dug deeper. "It's just that he's your best friend. This feels wrong," I admitted softly. Eric raised an eyebrow, unreadable. "When you were pressed against me in the car earlier, did it feel wrong then?" Heat rushed to my cheeks. It was inappropriate, messy, complicated. But stepping back now felt cowardly. A sudden thought struck me. Maybe I should call him, just to check. Eric's lips curved into a sly smile. "Go ahead. Call him. I'll wait." I fumbled for my phone. Thomas answered after a moment, sounding unconcerned. "No, I'm dizzy tonight. Why? What's keeping you?" I forced my tone to stay light. "Are you celebrating with someone?" "Yes, with a girlfriend. Eric's really into her." I exhaled softly. Eric watched my face carefully. "So, your husband's not coming home?" I asked. I shook my head. "No, he's celebrating with his new girlfriend." "Thoughtful of him, even remembers her name," he teased, though something flickered in his eyes. Mischief mixed with something strangely gentle. The truth stung. Thomas had really forgotten. Eric noticed my silence. "So, shall we continue where we left off?" I nodded slowly. "Of course," I whispered. Back in college, Thomas and I were the perfect pair. He came from humble beginnings but carried big dreams. I was gentle, quiet, steady. We married soon after graduation. For a while, life was peaceful. That first year was filled with harmony. Then Thomas suddenly struck it rich, and everything changed. His world became flashy, loud, chaotic. He no longer appreciated the gentle woman I had been. Tonight, I wanted to explore the other side of myself. I had prepared, bought new lingerie, practiced confidence, but fear always held me back. Yet, with Eric beneath me, I finally allowed myself to feel the thrill of stepping into a bolder version of myself. Eric, usually composed, lifted his head slightly. "Enough, baby. I told you you're in charge," he said, amusement dancing in his eyes. "Just enjoy it," I whispered, my face warm. He let out a low sound, half laugh, half sigh. "Baby, how long have you been craving this?" We both knew the truth. Thomas had changed over the years. The man who once adored my tenderness now sought novelty elsewhere. And I realized how quickly I could embrace my own desires once I let go of old expectations. That night, I discovered a side of myself I had never seen. Confident, daring, bold. Eric guided gently, letting me explore without judgment. His steady presence made room for me to grow. Even as I enjoyed the closeness, a small voice reminded me of the boundaries. Thomas was my husband. Eric was Thomas's closest friend. The tension between right and wrong thrilled and terrified me. I wondered what his hands would feel like elsewhere. I glanced at him again. "Eric," I whispered. He was instantly alert. "What? Do you have a girlfriend?" "No," I muttered, the word catching slightly. "Do you do one-night stands?" He stared at me in disbelief. "Jessica, you, not me," he said sharply. "I meant for a friend," I lied quickly. She wanted me to ask. "Not interested," he answered, clipped. I sighed, my fingers still resting on his knee. I traced a small circle there and murmured, "I want to see what you look like." The tires screeched suddenly. The car jerked to a stop on the roadside. I lurched forward and instinctively grabbed his thigh to keep from slamming into the dashboard. He shifted the gear into park. Everything after that moved easily. Too easily. I used every bit of confidence I'd researched late at night, the parts of myself I'd never shown before. And Eric didn't take me home that night. He came home with me. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like I had been hit by a truck, every muscle aching. I had taken the lead, but Eric had clearly had his own plans. I remember him leaning close, whispering something about me being surprisingly flexible, and everything after that blurred together. Eric lay beside me now, asleep, his expression peaceful, almost gentle. Thomas always called Eric a monk, emotionless, cold. But what kind of monk held someone all night and refused to let go? My ruined nightgown was on the floor. I crumpled it and stuffed it deep in the closet. My reflection in the mirror looked like a mess, the aftermath of indulgence written across my face. I dressed quietly and slipped out. People who had one-night encounters usually didn't wake up together. Too awkward, too personal. I understood. I left voluntarily. I wandered the streets until noon. Then my phone rang. Eric. "Where did you go?" he asked. "I was running errands," I said casually. "Thomas is back," he said. My blood ran cold. "Did he see you in our bed?" "No, I finished straightening everything before he arrived." Relief flooded me. "How did you explain it?" I told him you had a meeting nearby, spilled coffee on yourself, and ran into me. I offered my place to shower. "Nice story," I said, giving him a silent thumbs up he couldn't see. There was a pause. "Jessica," he said quietly, "when are you going to divorce him?" "Why should I asked. "You slept with me," he said sharply, "and you don't plan to divorce him?" I sighed. "Fine, the friend who wanted a one-night stand, that was me." He went silent, then muttered through clenched teeth, "You're really something, Jessica," and hung up. Almost immediately, my phone rang again. Thomas. "Jessica, where are you shopping? This early?" he added. "I wanted to buy you a birthday gift," I said breezily. He snorted. "My birthday's in 6 months." "Exactly. I wanted to be thoughtful," I replied. His tone softened with guilt. "Yesterday was your birthday. I couldn't say no to Eric. Sorry I wasn't with you. I got you a present. Come home early." "You're so sweet," I said sweetly. "I saw a beautiful necklace today." "Buy it," he said indulgently. "Your husband can afford it." "Thank you, darling." I hung up and went straight to the jewelry counter. I wasn't about to save money for a man who cheats. I picked 5 heavy gold necklaces. Why not gold bars? Because a friend told me jewelry counts as personal property in a divorce, undivided. Gold bars? Fair game. After Thomas's repeated affairs, I made him sign a prenup. All jewelry purchased during marriage was mine. Everything else split 50-50. He signed without blinking. He was sure I wouldn't leave the wealthy wife lifestyle, so while he played around, I built my gold reserves quietly. I planned to leave him, but only after saving enough in both cash and disappointment. I hadn't worked a traditional job in years. I stayed home and wrote novels. When I signed my first contract, I used my mom's ID because I'd misplaced mine. The bank account, too. It turned out to be a blessing. Thomas thought I was completely dependent. He had no idea one book could bring in millions. All I had left to do was wait for the final straw. When I got home, Thomas stood in the living room, his expression dark. He dangled a torn scrap of black lace from his finger, the same nightgown Eric had ripped apart. "Jessica," he said slowly, "what is this?" I tilting my head. "A rag. I bought it on clearance. Cheap fabric. It fell apart after one wear." "A rag? From Victoria's Secret?" "What's Victoria's Secret?" I asked, feigning innocence. Truthfully, I'd never worn that brand. His face faltered, confusion, then panic. "I don't know," he said quickly. "I just heard about it somewhere. So, my husband knows lingerie brands now. How impressive. I turned my attention to the gift he'd left, a limited edition designer handbag. But a question crept in. Was he this generous with other women? And if so, could I reclaim the gifts he gave them? Another note for the lawyer. Thomas started walking towards me. I knew that look. After years of marriage, I could read him easily. He wanted intimacy. But I'd already had more than enough the night before, and I couldn't risk him seeing the marks Eric had left. My period came early, I said quickly. It's not convenient. Relief washed over his face. Then let's just kiss a little, he murmured, leaning closer. His lips brushed my cheek. Then his phone rang. A smirk formed as he answered. Eric, what's up, bro? I'm spending some quality time with your sister-in-law, he said in a suggestive tone, clear enough for anyone to understand exactly what he was implying. After a few short words, he hung up. Then came a few half-hearted kisses. Perfect. Awkward. We both felt it. Strange how you don't notice something until you have something better to compare it to. Once you've tasted the best, it's almost impossible to tolerate less. I needed to speed up the divorce. Somewhere between last night and this morning, something inside me had shifted. My heart had finally broken free. Thomas, I said calmly, I want to visit my parents. I had left my hometown for him, married into a city far from everything familiar. At first, he couldn't function without me. Then, as he got richer and more disloyal, I stayed behind only to keep an eye on him. I hadn't gone home in years. Sure, he said immediately. It's been so long. Stay as long as you want. Great, I smiled. I want to buy some health supplements for my mom. He pulled out a card from his wallet. Don't be stingy. Buy her something nice. He hummed cheerfully as he left. If I went home, he wouldn't have any obligations toward me. No pretending, no guilt. He could run wild with his mistresses freely. That was perfectly fine. It gave me time to breathe, collect evidence, prepare. I couldn't understand why I had once clung to him so desperately. Why I had turned into that bitter, obsessed wife. I picked up my phone, ready to call my lawyer. But before I could dial, Eric sent a message. Are you sure your body can handle it? Not afraid you'll burst? I was speechless. I packed a suitcase and checked into a hotel. My lawyer had told me if I gathered enough solid evidence of Thomas's cheating, especially proof of expensive gifts he bought for other women, it would give me an advantage during the property division. I could even reclaim those gifts. So I went undercover. Mask, sunglasses, baseball cap. I trailed him like a private investigator. I watched him escort a seductive, dolled-up woman into a private apartment I couldn't access. I watched him drive in and out of exclusive clubs where I didn't know a single soul. After a long time pacing and overthinking, I called the only person I could, Eric. He answered slowly. Divorced yet? Not yet, I admitted sheepishly. Then why are you calling me? Can't I call you if I'm not divorced? Eric exhaled in irritation. What do you want, Jessica? That night was a mistake. If you don't get divorced, there won't be a second time. Do me a favor. Just one thing. What is it? Come pick me up. Wait there. 20 minutes later, he arrived and took me inside one of those exclusive clubs. He frowned the moment we entered. This place is a mess. What are you doing here? You've been ignoring me. I wanted to see you. I lied. The truth, that night we spent together had soothed the loneliness I'd carried for 25 years, but I didn't have the courage to cross that line again. Eric tilted his chin, eyes cool. Well, I don't want to see you. But the faint smirk tugging at his lips gave him away. He opened a private room and ordered a bottle of wine and a glass of watermelon juice. Sorry, we're out, the waiter said. Eric casually tossed a few bills on the table.
then go out and buy one. The waiter scrambled away. "Can I kiss you?" I asked softly. "No," he replied instantly. "Oh." I fell silent. Suddenly, he yanked me onto his lap. "So what? You're not going to kiss me just because I said no? Why so well behaved tonight?" I dragged him out here so late at night. I felt like I should give something back, or he might never come again. So I leaned in and gave him a gentle kiss. Just as I began to pull away, he cupped the back of my head and deepened it, his intensity rising. I pushed lightly against his chest. "Not here," I whispered. "This isn't the place." "Then let's go to my place." "I need the bathroom first." "Now that's sexy," he said with a raised brow. "No, I really need to pee." He laughed in disbelief. "There's a bathroom in the room." "I'm afraid I'll bump into someone awkward," I said, already slipping out the door. In truth, I wasn't heading for the bathroom. I was sneaking around the club, peeking into each private room. Eventually, I found exactly what I was looking for. Thomas, wrapped up in a passionate embrace with a young woman. I quickly raised my phone to snap photos, but right as I got the angle, a hand covered my screen. "Eric." His expression was thunderous. "You said you wanted to see me. Turns out you were just looking for him. Jessica, do you enjoy using me that much?" "No, it's not like that. He's really that good, huh? Do you even realize how many women he's with?" "Please lower your voice." No, his voice only grew louder. "You're his wife. Why the hell are you sneaking around like this? Where's your dignity, Jessica?" Tears pricked my eyes. A month ago, I might have broken down completely. But now that I was awake, now that I knew my worth, I refused to be ashamed. Eric didn't wait. He kicked open the door to Thomas's room and shouted, "Thomas, your wife's here." Thomas jumped, shoving the girl aside and scrambling to dress. By the time he stepped out, his expression had returned to smug calm. "You said you were visiting your parents, so you were spying on me instead. I feel suffocated with you. You're cold in bed like a dead fish, and outside of bed, you're controlling, watching my every move. The more you chase me, the less I want to come home." I laughed. "You're really good at flipping the script, Thomas. Don't try your boardroom tricks on me. When you begged me to quit my job to take care of you, cooking porridge and making hangover soup, you didn't mind me controlling you. When I dragged your drunk body off the street, you didn't say I was monitoring you. But now that you've made some money, you suddenly can't stand me?" I took a breath. "Let's get a divorce, Thomas." It was the first time I'd said it in front of him. Thomas's face twisted, but he snapped, "Fine, let's get a divorce. Let's see how you survive without me." He thought I was bluffing. Then I brought a lawyer to his office, laid out our assets, and presented hard proof of his cheating. That's when his panic began. "Jessica, I didn't mean it. Let's calm down." "I am calm," I said. "Here's the deal. Split everything 50-50, sign the papers, and I won't go after the gifts you gave to your mistresses. Honestly, chasing every detail would be exhausting. My mom had already found a cute villa back home. I just needed the property settlement for the down payment. And she mentioned the new university town full of young, handsome students. I couldn't wait to look." "I'm not agreeing to the divorce," Thomas said stubbornly. My smile faded. "Then I'll file a lawsuit. It'll be time-consuming, expensive, and terrible for your reputation." "No," he shouted. "Every successful man fools around. Didn't we get through the first few years fine? I gave you money, you looked the other way. You lived the life of a rich wife. What more do you want?" "I want the same life, just without you." "You're lying," he muttered. "You still love me. You wouldn't leave me." "But I could." Clearly, an amicable divorce was impossible. That afternoon, I filed the case. And suddenly, the man who hated coming home started arriving early every night. He brought flowers, small gifts. I mentally tallied how much shared money he was burning each time. He even tried initiating intimacy again, but every time he touched me, my stomach turned. Eventually, I slid a kitchen knife under my pillow.
The next time he approached, I pulled it out, holding it firmly. He froze at the door, hands raised. Jessica, please, you're the only one I love. Everything else was just stress relief. I never wanted to divorce. From now on, I'll come straight home. No more women. Let's start over. No, I said. If you come into this room again, I'll use this knife. He stumbled back. During the day, I lounged on the sofa, petting the cat lazily. Eric texted, "Divorced yet?" "Not yet, but soon." "Good. Tell me when it's done. I'll move in." I rolled my eyes. But the truth? That night with him had set a standard no one else could match. I wasn't sure if young men could even measure up. The thought made me smile. "What are you smiling about?" Thomas asked, suddenly, wearing an apron and holding a ladle, giving me a soft look. I had hired a maid, but he insisted she leave, claiming it would damage our emotional bond. Now he wanted to cook for me himself? I quickly deleted my chat with Eric. The divorce wasn't finalized. I couldn't leave evidence. I went to the bathroom and returned to find Thomas holding my phone. My heart skipped. Had I deleted everything? What if something explicit remained? But Thomas looked at me strangely. "Jessica, why do you have so many—" I held my breath. Then he grinned. "Why do you have so many porn pictures?" I nearly fainted with relief. Snatching the phone, I snapped, "Didn't you say I was like a dead fish? I'm learning new techniques from abroad." His eyes lit up. "You still care about me. If only you had done this earlier. What man doesn't like a fling or two? But now that I've had my fun, I'm ready to settle down. After dinner, why don't you show me what you've learned?" In the past, I might have entertained the idea. Now, it was revolting. "Save it," I said. "That's for after the divorce. You won't be involved." His face darkened instantly. That afternoon, I curled up in the bedroom working on my latest novel. Sales had been excellent. My editor even said it had a strong chance of being adapted into a drama. If that happened, we wouldn't be talking tens of thousands. We'd be talking millions. I was writing a scene where the male and female leads finally acknowledged their feelings. A moment full of emotional push and pull, tension and quiet longing. Back when I used to write romantic scenes, I would picture Thomas and myself in them. But now, just the thought of him made my stomach twist. So, when I needed an image for inspiration, I imagined Eric instead. But the truth was, that night between us had been nothing like the gentle, restrained scenes I wrote. It was wild, unguarded, raw, nothing like a sweet first love. Which made me wonder, what had his first love been like? He was handsome, privileged, confident. Had he been shy back then? Did he start learning all those skills early in life? I was still lost in those thoughts when a knock sounded at the door. I frowned and ignored it. Jessica called from outside. "Open the door! Eric's here!" Eric? The exact same Eric I had just been mentally undressing a minute ago? Among all of Thomas's friends, he had only one Eric. I snapped my laptop shut and opened the door. Sure enough, it was him. Before I could speak, Thomas scolded me. "Why are you greeting guests dressed like that?" I looked down. I was wearing a pink Hello Kitty loungewear set with nothing underneath. I lifted my chin. "I can wear whatever I want. It's none of your business." All right, he said with a forced smile. "Don't provoke me on purpose. I asked Derek to come talk to you. He's seen our relationship from the beginning. Maybe he can talk some sense into you and stop this divorce nonsense." I almost laughed. Of all the people hoping for this divorce, Eric was second only to me. Thomas had no idea. He still believed Eric was firmly on his side. It makes sense. Thomas once took a punch for him in high school, and since then, Eric had never forgotten the loyalty. He'd helped Thomas with business, opportunities, everything. So, of course Thomas thought Eric would mediate. I turned to Eric. "Come in. Let's hear how you plan to convince me." Thomas tried to follow us inside, but I blocked the door. Fine, he muttered, hands raised. "I'll go make lunch. Come out when you're done talking." The moment the door closed, Eric pulled me into his arms. His voice was low, hoarse, frustrated. Why aren't you divorced yet? I'm waiting on the court ruling. That's too slow, he growled. I'm running out of patience. He held me tightly, breathing against my neck, then whispered, You're not wearing anything underneath, are you? Why should I? I'm at home. What if he saw? He's seen it for years. That doesn't make it okay. He's about to be your ex-husband. Start keeping boundaries. Fine. I'll put something on. He caught my wrist. You just love testing me, don't you? I smiled. You came because he asked. Only because I couldn't reach you, he muttered. You blocked me. I'm just being cautious, he said quietly. Didn't want to cause trouble before the divorce is final. I know, I whispered, softening. That's why I'm glad you're here. He kissed me deeply, and soon we were tangled on the bed again, as if it were second nature. You want to? He murmured. Not here. The walls aren't soundproof. I'll be gentle. Okay, then. The closeness, the warmth, the intensity, everything about him overwhelmed my senses. He brushed his lips along my skin, lingered at my collarbone, then kissed his way upward. He was infuriatingly good at making me lose control. Curiosity slipped out of my mouth before I could stop it. Eric, how did you kiss your first love? He didn't pause, just thought for a moment. She used to tease me while I was driving, put her hand on my leg. So I pulled her into my lap and kissed her just like this. What? I blinked. That's how we kissed the first time. He met my eyes. Slow, deep, steady. Exactly. My heart skipped. Wait, I whispered, breath caught. Are you saying I was your first love? You're just realizing that now? He teased. Didn't Thomas ever tell you I've never dated? I stared. Thomas truly was an idiot. Eric laughed softly. He is. He had a good wife and he didn't know how to cherish you, so I had to make my move. At the time, I had thought he was just being sweet in the moment. Later, I learned the truth. He had wanted me for a long time. Then, how are you so experienced? I asked, blushing. He pressed a gentle kiss on my forehead. Some things only unlock when the right person shows up. My heart exploded with heat. From that day forward, whenever I thought of first love, his face replaced every old memory. Thomas eventually knocked on the door, calling us for lunch. Eric adjusted his clothes, calm and composed. I changed quickly. My outfit was, unsurprisingly, a mess. As I stepped out, Thomas eyed me suspiciously. Jessica, why are your eyes red? Because she cried, Eric replied smoothly. I gave her advice that really moved her. And why is her mouth swollen? She wanted to cry but held it in, so she bit her lip, Eric answered without blinking. Thomas sighed of relief. Jessica, don't you think this divorce thing was impulsive? I regret not being impulsive 2 years ago, I snapped. His smile froze. Eric stepped between us. She's going through a rough emotional patch. It'll take time. I'll keep talking to her. Thomas patted his shoulder gratefully. Thanks, brother. Stay for lunch. Not today, Eric said casually. Maybe next time. Before leaving, he turned to me and said seriously, Jessica, think hard about what I said. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, Jessica.
I rolled them again. Thomas made crayfish for lunch. He proudly peeled the tails and arranged them neatly on a plate, just like he used to back in college. Back then, I loved crayfish, but hated peeling them. He'd always do it for me. I once thought, if he peels crayfish for me forever, I'll be content. After marriage, he got busy. The peeling became my job. I'd place the peeled meat on his plate, and he didn't even say thank you. Jessica, I made your favorite, he said, smiling proudly. I picked up the plate and dumped it straight into the trash. As I grew older, I said coldly,
I stopped liking them. Thomas froze, speechless. The court eventually ruled in my favor, exactly as I requested. When I left the city, Thomas stood there crying like a fool. "Jessica, I regret everything. I can't live without you. Please give me another chance." I didn't say a word. I waved him off and boarded the high-speed train home. I bought my mother her dream villa. I adopted a golden retriever. I watered plants, read books, wrote stories. Life had never been so peaceful. But Thomas kept showing up, begging me to come back. That winter, he stood outside in a thin coat, shivering. It reminded me of college, when I'd throw a tantrum and he'd wait outside my dorm with warm brown sugar water. But the girl who found that romantic had grown up. Love wasn't about who froze the longest. Clarity replaced heat, and I realized the man I once loved fiercely wasn't extraordinary at all. I didn't love him anymore, and no matter how pitiful he looked, I wouldn't go back. Whenever my mother visited and saw him lingering around, she never held back. "My daughter left everything for you. She worked hard, cared for you, and you repaid her with betrayal. You have no heart. If I see you again, don't blame me for what I do." After that, Thomas came less. Instead, he started sending good morning and good night texts every day. Little memes, funny stories, trying to make me laugh. He was humble, desperate, exactly like I used to be. Back when I tried to maintain our connection, I'd send him things to brighten his day. At first, he'd call me silly. Then he stopped responding. Eventually, he snapped. "If you're bored, go shopping. You think I have time for this?" So I stopped sending. I never thought I'd see him become the person I had once been. I blocked his number. He got a new one. Eric told me Thomas really hadn't seen any women lately. At parties, when people urged him to drink, he'd wave them off. "My wife doesn't allow it." Even after the divorce, he still called me his wife. He drank alone now. When he got drunk, he cried, "Wife, why don't you come get me?" Sometimes I'd pause and wonder, if you loved me that much, why didn't you show it when it mattered? Eric hated seeing me thoughtful about Thomas. One day he bumped my shoulder and muttered, "You regret it." I glared. "Try me." He was always around, effortlessly charming, endlessly tempting. One day I teased him. "I should find someone younger. I'm not into old men." He scoffed. "Young guys are useless, still need training. Even if you raise them well, someone else will steal them." He had a point. Why grow a tree just for someone else to enjoy the shade? So I gave in. I kept enjoying Eric. He met my mom a few times. She looked him up and down approvingly. "Never seen such a handsome man before. Even his car is good looking." "Mom, you've got taste," I laughed. "Of course I do. I always thought Thomas was bad luck." "What about this one? Is he lucky?" "That depends," I said softly, "on whether I'm willing to give him any." Eric was always respectful, thoughtful. Every visit, he greeted my parents politely, arms full of stylish gifts. Everything my mother never received from her first son-in-law, she now received from Eric. And then one day, she casually handed me my household registration book. "Just in case you need it someday," she said with a smirk. Then one day, Eric was rummaging through a drawer looking for condoms, and he came across the book. He froze, looking at me. "Next time," he said, "bring yours too. Let's register our marriage." I raised an eyebrow. He smiled. "Since the day you got divorced, mine's been in the car." And just like that, we registered our marriage. Quickly, impulsively. But after one failed marriage, I had rules. 3 of them. First, I'm not moving. If you want a married life, you come to me. Second, if you cheat, divorce immediately. Third, I'm not ready for kids. Don't try to change my mind. Eric agreed to all of them without hesitation. First, he said, I love coming here. Feels like a real home. You don't need to move anywhere. Second, if I cheat, I'll leave with nothing. Third, I'm not looking to have kids either. Not when I finally found this happiness. On New Year's Eve, Eric and I went to my parents' home to celebrate. It was the first time since college that I'd spent New Year's with them. For years, I hadn't dared to. Thomas used to say it was tradition. The daughter-in-law spent New Year's with her in-laws. Returning home, he said, would bring bad luck. I believed him. Every year, I carried gifts to his house, while my parents spent the holiday alone. But Eric was different. His mother had passed away early, and he wasn't close with his father. He loved the warmth and bustle of my home. It made him feel grounded. That night, at the dinner table, my mom teared up. And I realized all those years of misguided love hadn't just hurt me. They'd hurt my parents, too, who had always loved me unconditionally. After dinner, we went outside to set off fireworks. I laughed so hard I lost track of time, until I noticed someone standing outside the front gate. Thomas. He had texted me the day before, wanting to spend New Year's with me. I hadn't replied. I had warned him, don't come. I didn't think he'd actually come. He stood there under the glow of fireworks, eyes flicking from me to Eric, confusion and disbelief written across his face. His voice darkened. Eric, what are you doing at my wife's house? Eric chuckled low. Calling her your wife is a bit of a stretch, don't you think? You're divorced. Jessica is now my wife. Thomas's eyes narrowed. Eric, explain yourself. Without missing a beat, Eric wrapped an arm around me. Jessica and I are married. I'd advise you not to go around claiming she's your wife anymore. She belongs to me now. Thomas's face contorted with rage. Eric, I treated you like a brother, and this is how you repay me? With a roar, Thomas lunged, throwing a punch. Immediately, Eric stepped in front of me, taking the hit with his elbow. Then, in one swift movement, he kicked Thomas to the ground. Years of alcohol had weakened Thomas. He couldn't fight back. Eric's fist landed squarely on his face. I've wanted to do this for a long time, Eric growled. Thanks for delivering yourself right to my doorstep. Bruised and trembling, Thomas shouted, Eric, we're through. Eric sneered. That's the best thing you've ever said. Later, Thomas left the Queen family business and tried to start something on his own. Without Eric's support and protection, and without the resources he had always depended on, his company crumbled in less than 6 months. He was in debt, his reputation ruined, and he became the same penniless man he once was. But this time, the woman who had stood by him, Jessica, was gone. I first met Jessica during my sophomore year when I flew back to China for a break. Thomas introduced her proudly. This is my girlfriend. She was shunning. Gorgeous. The kind of girl you'd expect to be bold and unrestrained. But she wasn't. She was soft-spoken, polite. During dinner, Thomas peeled a crayfish for her. Her eyes shimmered as she looked at him, touched by this simple gesture. At that moment, I thought, how can someone be so easily satisfied? My parents never got along. My father had a mistress. My mother eventually broke under the pressure. One day, she jumped from a building. Growing up, I never knew warmth. In high school, a group of bullies targeted me. Thomas stepped in, took a punch for me. That's how we became friends. After graduation, he asked me to start a business with him. I knew he wanted my resources and connections, but I let him use them anyway. He even brought Jessica into the company. She